we all feel like our suffering is unique somehow, that no one can understand. And in reality, it's like you're like a textbook example of something. Like millions of people are exactly the same in some way, shape, or form. It is a little bit of a relief to know that you're not alone and that there is help, that so many other people have been through that there is way if you can find it. But it's very difficult to convince someone to change their lives, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, they have to definitely be ready, right? I'm going to go ahead and announce our podcast because we're already talking about deeper things, and I like that. That's good. My name is Jennifer Lopez, and this is the Rough Diamond Podcast. I am here sitting chatting with Christopher Agraz. He is my friend Ashley's brother, and we are continuing our series on recovery and sobriety. And Chris is a little bit different from Marshall. And every single person that's going to be on this podcast is a little bit different from each other. And I think it's a beautiful way, and that we were just touching on this a bit before we came on the air. It's a beautiful way to help people understand that their suffering is not unique and that there are other people that have suffered in similar ways and that they are not an island and they are not alone. So, Chris, let's start. I want to start with getting to know you a little bit better before we dive into deeper things, just so that our audience knows who you are first. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. So, who is Chris outside of recovery? Just Chris.
Currently, I live a pretty unremarkable life. I've been here in a halfway house for the last 5 years. I was here for about a year and I couldn't find a job and I had nothing but free time. So I decided I would go and get my welding certifications. So I did that for 2 years and then I got a job that I hate. And I was like, I think I'll get my business degree so that I don't have to listen to these people. I get blown off a lot. People are like, oh, you wouldn't understand. I'm like, well, all right, then I'll teach myself to understand. And that consumes pretty much all of my time at the moment, aside from going to the gym and being lazy when I can.
I love it. That's amazing. And we were just kind of talking about that too, is like controlling the things that you can control and not worrying about the things that you can't control. And that is a great way to do that is go to school so that people don't get to tell you what or where. I went to business school and I will tell you it taught me so much about how to run a business. And then I also sought out mentors. And that I think is such a fast way to learn, is to find mentors that have specialized knowledge in the things, the specific things that you would like to learn about and grow about and what like you just want to create whatever you want to create. Find mentors for that. I was blessed enough to get paid to learn marketing and get paid to learn personal training and get paid to learn all of the things that I needed to learn to run my business currently and start this podcast. And I think that is something that everybody can do. You just have to find the right mentor, find the right modality. I just found a job that was willing to train me on the things that I wanted to learn. And then whenever we went our separate ways, I implemented the things that I learned. I had several mentors during that time, and I got several certifications in personal training. So you are on the right track, my friend. This is a great question. Before we get into everything, how did growing up with Ashley shape who you are?
Oh, that's an interesting question. My sister has a very different social circle than I do. We did not hang out with any of the same people. So when we went to RL Turner, we I think we were there maybe a year or two together, maybe 1 year, I forget. She hung out with all of the like nerds and geeks and all the other people, and I hung out with all of the gangsters. And I did all of the other, basically the opposite of it. I skipped school a lot. She was like a straight A student, and I absent failed. So,
Fair enough, fair enough. That's cool that you guys got to go to school together, though. My brother was like 10 years older than me. And so it was always like, he was like the cool guy with the loud truck. And my friends were like, who's that? And I was like, that's my brother. They're like, why is he so old? when did you, so we're going to dive into your recovery story and all of the things, but we're going to go back. When did you first realize your relationships with substances would become a problem or could become a problem?
I don't think I realized that I actually had a problem with substances because I think I realized that a lot of the environments that I were in were not wrong, and I think that that was just my coping mechanism. I had other issues, but that didn't help. It wasn't until I actually stumbled upon something that helped me by accident. But I knew when I went to prison the last time that I was only getting worse, and that if I didn't stop, that I was going to die. And so, not long before I got arrested, my brother died in a car crash, and then like a few weeks later, I totaled a truck while I was drinking and driving. And I was like, yeah, this isn't going to end well. And I knew that. I would stop and think about it. I was like, every time I would drive, I would stop, like, you shouldn't do this. Like, this could kill you. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. And I would stop and I would even pause and take a minute to just think about it. And I was just go anyway. And I think whenever I was in jail, because I was homeless before that, I had no idea what was going to happen to me. I was like, yeah, this probably isn't going to end well anyway, but you're probably going to end up killing yourself somehow if you continue to do what you're doing. But I think to answer your question a little bit better, I think I blamed my substance abuse more on other people more than I did my own inability to handle real world situations. So I think I kind of diverted and avoided blaming myself.
That's really, it takes a lot of self integrity to say that because a lot of people exist pretty deeply in their ego. And your ego is meant to help you to survive. It's not meant to be something that hangs out with you into adulthood. It's something that you should use, but it's not something that should just be your existence. And I think that when people blame others for what they've done, it's a form of making excuses, and that's your ego protecting you from thinking that you're a piece of shit and jumping off a bridge. And so I think that to a degree, that is probably not a horrible thing because while you are in that drug state where your brain is not functioning the way that it should, I think that having that defense of victimizing yourself and blaming others probably ended up saving your life. And I think that's rather crazy because I've never even thought of it like that until you said that. Because it's like, wow, this is something that we all do, right? As people, I was a heroin addict. I have my own recovery story. And that's something that we all do as addicts. We kind of blame others. We blame our childhood. We blame our parents. We blame our situation. We blame how much money we have. We like whatever it is that or trauma and blah 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 instead of and trauma and like enacted on us by others and then we blame that person instead of taking responsibility for it and saying, you know what, I am deciding to pollute my body with this destruction. I am choosing this, and if I don't stop choosing this, I am gonna for sure die. For me, it wasn't so straightforward. Like there were times where I felt like I might die and times I felt like I might not, but I really didn't give a shit. And which is just insane to me to even think now because my life now is so, and my kids and my life is so rich. And so the fact that I didn't give a shit about my life and the fact that I was like balls to the walls, all gas, you cannot stop me, super brat on one. And I didn't realize that I was going to die until my body felt like it was dying from the effects of alcohol and from the effects of drugs. And then that's when it was like, oh shit, I'm not invincible. I feel like my body is dying. And I realized that I wanted to not die. So I think that having that perspective in that time is something that we need to, as like a buffer, to make it so that we make it through. And I think that's really interesting to think of because it puts your mind in kind of this more compassionate place for people, other people that are in recovery, and maybe pointing the finger outward and blaming everybody else. And it's so annoying, right? Like, it's like, ugh. It's so annoying that you're blaming everybody, but they are just trying to survive, and that's what your ego is for. So that's interesting. What was the hardest part of early recovery that people might not expect?
Oh, this actually ties into what we were just discussing. So for me, I think my personality was kind of narcissistic, and at least the way that I understand it, where you have like a overinflated self of ego that doesn't really match up with what you actually are. Because I think it was a defense mechanism. It's like it's better to pretend to be better than you are than to just be completely worthless. And so when I got past that, I was like, oh, and I was homeless, and I'm like, we don't have anywhere to go. I'm like, yeah, but you treat people terribly. Why are you surprised by that? It doesn't occur to you that other people have feelings and thoughts. Yeah, that's a good point. Because you can't escape getting out of your own head. And that was a big roadblock for me because I couldn't get past. It was hard for me to move past my own ego because it may protect you in the short term, but in the long term, it keeps you from doing anything that actually matters. It's like, oh, I don't need to do this. I already know everything. It's like, well, no, you don't. If you knew everything, then you wouldn't be here in the first place. And so it was an interesting process to go through. Like you said, it's not linear. Like you make a little progress and then you regress and back and forth for a while. But that was one of the biggest things. And once you see that, you're like, oh, once you realize that, you could see people who are newer in recovery who are like, I don't need to be here. Yeah, all right. Keep telling yourself that. I thought that was one of there was, I guess I'll talk about it. There was two ideas that I had that really stuck with me, and that was one of them. Because you see that a lot, even in people who are not addicts, you see that. Whether it's like a persona, it's the outward face that they project to other people, and it may not necessarily be real. It may be close, but it's not always 100% genuine. I think people are very afraid in general of just different things.
I know that I was not myself. I would project a different. When I was around everybody else, I would be this extroverted, super confident, shiny star, right? Super funny. But that didn't last because like I was drinking and then like I was like became overweight and then it was not so attractive and then it was like it just starts to go downhill and then you're being like you think that you are cooler than you are and you do have this overinflated sense of self and people are looking at it, you're like, man, I really wish you would get it together. And you don't even know. You think that everybody just thinks everything is fine. It's a good point. And I think that that was hard for me, was whenever I was in recovery and I had to reconcile that people didn't like me that much because of the things that I had done. And people didn't think that I was nice or caring or whatever because even though my intentions on the inside were always pretty good, I didn't let that show on the outside because I was busy trying to fit in or be cool or freaking get whatever the fuck I wanted, right? And so I had to, I think in the early part of recovery for me, reconciling those feelings and feeling bad for hurting people and stepping on people, right? People that I did love, people that I absolutely cared about, even friends that like, and acquaintances that I absolutely valued. And I wasn't kind to them, or I hurt them, or I stole from them. And that coming to the understanding that, man, I did this to people that I love. Like, I wish that I could go backwards and like sew it all up and tell everybody, like, hey, I really do love you. And I loved you this whole time, even whenever I was small and young and on drugs and being crazy. And even though I got off track, so like that was really tough for me. You got me like crying over here in our podcast. I don't think I've ever cried in a podcast. So thanks, Chris. Um,
You're welcome. If
uh,
I may touch on something,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
think for me, I don't think that I ever knew what it meant to love someone. I don't think that it was ever shown to me. And because of that, I had a very skewed view of what relationships could and should be. And so I think that kind of that pattern of, I don't know what you would call it, distrust, it certainly wasn't anything real. But I think that my ability to love or show love was very stunted. And because of that, I thought I knew what I was doing, but all I did was hurt people.
Yeah, I can relate to that for sure. Or not realizing that it was stunted too, like having it in for me, I like had the love in me, but I couldn't give it or receive love really in a healthy way either. I would think that they wanted something from me besides just to love me. You know what I mean? Even if it was like somebody that was supposed to like love me unconditionally. Um, and so that made it hard because as a human, you don't want transactional love. Like if I give you, you give this, like that sucks. But it was something that I was used to, brought up with. I don't know. I don't know how that works all the way, but I do kind of know how it works. I've taken some psychology courses and stuff like that, but all the way, knowing how that works all the way, like why that happens and the ins and outs of why that happened in my brain, I don't know that I will ever know. But I think that could be one of the things, one of the mysteries that you like uncover, right? Because so that you can heal. Because it's like all of this is like a layer after layer of like onions that you have to peel away to heal, onions of shame, right? Like, and look at like what was causing that shame and face it. But I definitely have found that if you face your shame, it demystifies it and it makes it very much smaller, and you can kind of put it in a bite-sized place and it's not as big of a deal, right? Like it's like I took in this shame for this thing that happened to me that wasn't necessarily my fault. It was just happening to me. And then I carried it forth and punished people with it. Great. So let's figure out how. And then there's shame for punishing people with it. And then there's shame for like with the excess of that. Like there's a, like, it's like a web of shame. And you have to find it and transmute it back to kind of a place of health, a place of reconciliation in your own psyche. And part of doing that is subduing your ego. I never think like killing your ego is the way. I think that you definitely need your ego for survival for certain situations, just like we have been talking about. So I think it's important that you learn what it is. And you learn whenever it's acting up. And you learn whenever it's keeping you from doing the things that you want to do, or keeping you too safe, or keeping you locked in an ideology of yourself that's inflated, or whatever. Because I think it's so important that even though we do accomplish after recovery and we do create pathways of success, that we remain humble and we understand that like anybody could do what we're doing, and anybody can, and we can just backslide just like anybody else if we're not maintaining that work and working on ourselves effectively.
All right. So this is something I thought about as it pertains to what I was saying before. When you do so many things, so many times, I'm sorry, that you stop thinking about them. You know, you're never more vulnerable, I think, than when you forget that you're sober. Because there's times that I forget that that I'm just not drinking or whatever, because you get caught up in the narrative of life. You're like, oh, because some things sound normal. Like, why don't you have a beer at a baseball game or whatever? And you don't, because you just, it's just something normal. It's like a normal American thing, you know? And I'm like, well, that's probably not a good idea for you. You'd go bankrupt for one for those $15 beers, but you'd have 30 of them. So, but yeah, it just, I catch myself sometimes and I forget. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been sober for a while. It really throws me off, but it makes me wonder if there's ever going to be a time where that's going to be safe.
I mean, I think that it gets safer as you face that shame we were talking about and as you reconcile your trauma, because that thought of wanting to medicate the impulse kind of fades and goes away. Also, something that I do is I play the tape all the way through to the end, right? That's straight out of like from recovery. I got it from NA, but I'm sure that they say it in AA too. But David Cho said that in an interview, and it was like that was one thing that really stuck with me whenever I was early on in recovery was play the tape all the way through to the end. Like, if I go buy this beer, I'm going to go bankrupt because I'll buy 30 of them. Also, it's going to hurt my stomach. It's going to give me a headache tomorrow. And then, one key thing that keeps me from touching anything now is it's going to disrupt my energy flow. I got shit kicking that's awesome, right? Like, and I'm doing awesome shit, and it will disrupt the flow. And I'm not trying to mess with that. I'm trying to hold that sacred so that I can continue to do the things that I want to do and accomplish my dreams and not die. Right? Um, I think like those things for me helped me. What helps you to get through those moments?
I think, the more that I educated myself, because like I would stay up, I don't know how it is for you. For me, the night times were the hardest because it was a time that I had to sit down and you can't escape, right? Everything's closed. It's just you and your thoughts. And that would drive me insane because it's like, then you really have to think about things. And when you're trying not to, that's very painful. And so I would drink and I would try to find ways to distract myself. I would try to find anything to do. When I realized that I was making things worse because I wasn't sleeping, of course, I wasn't eating anything healthy. I didn't touch water for the most part. And so when I was like, all right, when I got healthy, it was like when you learn just how unhealthy all the things you are doing really are. And I'm like, all right, like alcohol is bad for your body, but it also dehydrates you. It's bad for your brain. It wrecks recovery when you're lifting weights, all these other things. So that with the not sleeping and everything else that goes with it. I was like, yeah, I just don't want to do that. That just doesn't sound appealing to me.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
what
like,
mean by messing up the flow, dude. Like everything is copacetic right now. I drink water when I wake up. I eat eggs. Everything works fine. My skin looks great. Like all of that stuff. I'm smart. I can do math in my head. Like all of this stuff. But if I drink every day, or if I decide to do a bunch of blow every day, or if I like all of that goes bye bye. And if you look at pictures you see it, the difference. Like my muscles would not look like this if I was on cocaine, and didn't go to the gym. That would be awful. And I probably thought I was hot, dude, like because I was skinny, so sexy. What did life look like right before you entered recovery?
well, I was forced into recovery. The police don't allow you to drink in jail. I mean, you can still do it. It's just not so easy. I was um I was homeless. I was still, drinking when I could, doing drugs, I guess, when I could. It's a weird thing. You never see homeless people that are sober. I really thought about that. I was like, who's funding this massive drug operation that's keeping these people high all the time? I thought about that for a while, but I never reached a good enough answer. I was in San Marcos, and it was in December when I first got out there. I think it was December 26th, 27th. And overnight it would get down to like 29 degrees, and then during the day it would get up to like 60. And somebody stole all my clothes, stole my phone, so someone was out there freezing. I still had a little bit of money somehow from my last job, and I would just drink all night and just try to stay warm. But I really started thinking, by this point I had already started thinking about myself. I had this I had a thought that occurred to me 5 years or so before that. I was like, what if your problems are not, what if they weren't just by chance, they were by design? It was an easier framework to work. Like, if you can be honest with yourself enough, how would you ruin your own life? Like, if it was your goal to ruin your own life, what are your weaknesses that are easily exploited? Right. And that really helped me to make a lot of progress on myself. It was like, well, what do you want? Why do you want it? Because, like you said, well, I want to drink because I want to feel better about myself. It's interesting how much more interesting we think we are when we're drinking and doing drugs. We're like the most shallow people. I had been thinking about that for a while, and I'm homeless and I'm not eating a lot, I'm just doing whatever I can to pass the time. And then I got arrested. And so I went from being alone all the time outside to being surrounded by people I didn't want to be around inside. And that was not fun.
Yeah. I did not go to prison. I went to county jail. I went to Dallas County Jail, and I was in there for 3 weeks. That was an adventure. I did not necessarily get along great with a lot of the people there. And then I got along great with a lot of the people there too. It's a very weird dynamic inside, because there's some people that are just volatile all the time. And you kind of have to display this level of toughness. But whenever I got arrested and went to Dallas County Jail, I was very irate. It was Christmas Eve. And I was pissed. And I was a brat. And my dad wouldn't come get me. And I was like losing my mind in the holding tank. I had women that it was a good move. I don't know if God protected me or what, but because like maybe he like touched my head and was like, be very angry and psycho so that nobody will try to fight you, because nobody did. What does recovery mean to you? Is it just about being sober, or is it something bigger?
I think due to the sort of cyclical nature of recovery, like it's not a linear process. Like you don't, I don't believe people who say they just got sober one day. I'm like, I don't believe that. That just doesn't sound anything like what it is, because it sucks. Like you get sober and then you're like, oh, I forgot I was avoiding this thing, and then you start, in my case, drinking again.
Sometimes they medicate with other stuff. Like sometimes they become like super
Yes,
sex addicts, or sometimes they become gamblers.
I think for me, it just means more of moving in the right direction as a whole. Educate yourself, keep yourself healthy, even if you do relapse. Keep trying. Don't just give up and succumb to the darkness. I think if you stay on that sort of, there's no other way to describe it than the right path. You'll know when something is right for you. You'll know when you're doing something better than you were before, because you'll feel like you don't just start working out and feel worse.
Yeah, that's
So
true. I think for me, like feeling like I have purpose and that I'm serving others well and that I'm here for others, that I can stand in the gap for others and make an impact on others is really big. That's one thing that keeps me wanting to stay on the path. And I think that seeing people recover from anything, not necessarily drugs and alcohol. I am a fitness coach, so I help people recover from obesity. I help people just lose weight, recover from diabetes, recover from all kinds of different stuff. And having them understand that they can beat it, not like for me, having the understanding that I was always going to be an addict and I kind of always had to be this thing that I didn't want to be, and it was going to be a progressive disease and blah 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 and all this stuff. I didn't like that program. I don't like that program for anything, sickness, anything, my foot hurting, anything, like any kind of disease in the body. And this man, I was in IOP, and this man named Butch had told me the same thing that my mom had told me. A lot of times when my mom talked, whenever I was small, people would dismiss her because she had a lot of like woo ideas. And it wasn't really that woo. She was just like, she knew about psychoanalytics. She knew about Carl Jung. She knew about different things. She read a lot of books. But we had a lot of people around that were not intellectuals. So because she would share the things that she was learning, they would be like, oh, she's crazy, right? And so, like, whenever you're a little kid and you grow up with everybody kind of having that idea, it kind of diminishes the things that she would say, right? But she said that disease is just dis-ease. It's just something in your body that is out of whack because you're not in ease, you're not in a calm state. Your nervous system is activated because of whatever thing, trauma, freaking a chaotic family life, like whatever it could be, right? And then you hold on to it and you make it your very best friend, right? And that's what you do whenever you're like blaming others for your dis-ease, when you're like, well, this is my mom's fault and this is because she wasn't there all the time. She left me when I was 7, blah blah blah. Well, she was on her own journey. She was working through her own shit. She was probably recovering from freaking drugs herself. And something like, because but that was something that was like not talked about back then and not really visited upon back then. And it's not something that we look back and look at our parents and like, oh, they're human people and they have children. And so blaming others is a crutch, and you're holding on to these things when you can just let them go, when you can face them, and it doesn't have to be this thing, and it doesn't have to be a disease that you hold on to forever. And this man wrote it on a whiteboard, and it said dis on one side, and he put a freaking line down the middle, and he put ease. And he's like, right now, and he drew like an infinity sign around it. And he's like, right now, disease is in this infinity sign. And everybody's telling you that it's going to last forever. But you can remove one part of this word and just leave the other half inside the sign. And you just do it by facing your shit and working through it and working on yourself and making yourself better. But you have to face the things. You can't just make yourself better, like work out, do all this, make a ton of money, blah blah blah, and have all this surface level work done and not really do the work, because it's just going to end up short circuiting and messing everything up. And I think it's really smart of you to take time to stay in your halfway house and learn and really assess how your nervous system feels as you're going out into the world and doing the things that you seek to do, because you don't want that dis-ease to creep back in, but being empowered to be able to avoid that and to not have that have to be part of your story forever. I think that can also help people. Also, understanding it as a disease can help people, because for some people, their brain works like, I have to maintain this all the time, and this is blah, blah, blah. And then other people's like, I have to heal this at the source. Not everybody's the same, and not everybody's brain works the same. And there's pathways to get there, and they could be different, and they could look very different for everybody. But I think the value is just taking the path. What do you?
When I revisited life, in hindsight, I looked back, and it's very difficult when you have to assign blame for certain things, like when you're taking responsibility for your actions. And like you said, I think it was me, maybe I said this in my head, we're only sort of half of this. Like, I'm half of this discussion, you're half of this discussion. At any time, one of us could say something the other person that just doesn't agree with or doesn't like. That doesn't mean you have to yell at them or belittle them, whatever else. And so when I really look back at the nature of a lot of my interactions, I was like, wow, a lot of that might not have actually been me. It may have actually be other people. That was difficult for me to sort out. But as it pertains to my journey now, it's when you get into situations now, it's like I tend to distrust people who always agree with what I say now. That gets a little weird. I'm like, I don't know about that. That doesn't seem genuine.
Because there's supposed to be friction. That's like
Well, not necessarily friction, but just not like you can't just have like you think the exact same as one person. That sounds bullshit.
Well, friction is like anything that makes you better, right? Friction just refines you. So, like, having a person that has different interests and has different likes and all that stuff seems normal because that friction is something that's just a part of life. And whenever that it's not present, it's weird, right? Like, it's like, what the fuck? What do you, what? So, but
Well, one thing,
or it could
I'm
be
sorry.
glorious. It could be really awesome. You're like, oh, we have the same things in common. This is awesome, but you never know.
One other thing you mentioned when you don't do the core work and you just have that sort of superficial, you traded one superficial life for another when you're just kind of going through the motions. Well, you have to assign value to things in your life. That's how you sort of structure your reality, like what is meaningful and what is not. If everything is only you're only utilizing it to get other things, that's not really helpful, right? Like if you're using your health to land a better girlfriend or whatever, I don't know, whatever. I don't know what superficial ends people use things for. I assume that would be one of them. But you can't really ever really reap the real benefits of something if you're only doing it surface level.
That's true. You have to have value in it. Like your why has to be deep. Like it can't be like, oh, I just want to lose 10 pounds. Like, no, dude, you need to be healthy forever. You need to live forever. You have to be in your body for a really long time. No, you don't want to lose 10 pounds. Go lift a weight, please, for the love of God. Go freaking like, don't stop. Let me slap that super processed food that you're about to eat out of your hand. Oh my gosh. Because what is in there? There's a bunch of drugs in there.
It's
Essentially,
designed to be, yes, designed to make you want more.
yeah, causing a chemical reaction. And so, like, you have to be just understanding of how everything adds up, right? Like, it all accumulates over time. If you do drugs, you're gonna die. And it could be a slow death or it could be a fast death. If you eat processed food, you're gonna die. It could be a slow death or it could be a fast death. Hopefully, it's fast because slow death from eating ultra processed foods is very awful and is rife with metabolic health. But so is drug use, right? Like, imagine being miserable and on drugs your whole life. That's playing the freaking tape all the way through. Ugh, that sounds terrible. Ugh. This life feels much better. And that leads me to my next question. Sorry, has your sense of identity shifted since you got clean?
I think that I have one now. I think I tended to. I don't think so. I started drinking when I was very young. I started drinking it when I was 12, and I started drinking every day when I was 16, and I didn't really stop until I went to jail when I was 25. So at that point, I was had been drinking half life when I was 25 years old, and so I don't think I ever really formed an identity. And I was still very had a very childish mentality because I hadn't grown up in most of that time because I was drinking all the time. So you don't ever really mature when you don't stop to actually think about your decisions or weigh them and then against anything. Especially, like me, I grew up not necessarily sheltered. I did a lot of things, but I didn't ever really venture outside of places that didn't tend to share that philosophy of just drinking and drugs. So it didn't help me at all. And now I think I tend to be a lot more rational, which really helps me stay in who I am. I think each day I take time. Sometimes I'll just pull over when I'm driving home from work. I'm like, I'm going to go sit in this parking lot for 15 minutes and just close my eyes and relax and be me. Get back to me for a minute. Stop rushing around to do things and just be me. And that really helps me a lot. It's nice to be present in your own body and feel your own sense of self there.
Yeah, I think going inward And really kind of looking inwardly is so important. I think that it's a really big piece of what we're supposed to do for health that gets missed a lot, because I was at a wellness, um it wasn't a retreat, it was a expo, and they had paired us off, and I've told this story before, I think on the podcast, but they paired us off and it was two guys and me, and the question was, how often do you go inward? And they were like, how often do you go inward? And I was like, every day. You don't? And they're like, no, barely. Like sometimes me and my wife sit with our eyes closed together. It was like very brief, just like, what? Why do you need to do that? And it's because we are spiritual beings in a meat suit. And it's important to take care of the meat suit so that you can be strong and you can lift weights, but also so that you can carry your groceries and hang out with your kids and use your body for what it's for. But you're supposed to use your spirit for what it's for too. And people don't get that. And that's part of your health. Your mental health is part of your health. Your spiritual health is part of your health, and your physical health, part of your health. These things must be maintained together as a whole, because if one starts to fall down, all of both of the other ones start to drag, right? I know that I am not physically present at the gym on the level that I need to be physically present at whenever I am not meditating every day, because I'm checked out. I'm not centered. I'm not thinking through things the right way. I'm not, so like that is super valuable, something that you do that you've picked up on, because I feel like everybody should do that.
I actually wonder about this because you and my sister seem to be the same, and that you're very high functioning and you're always busy. And so I meant to ask you, like, how do you take time to get back to yourself? So, like, for me, I'm busy all day, and then when I come home, like, all right, I need to get back to me before I go do these other things. And so, like, I wonder how you handle that.
I schedule time breaks in between. I kind of right now, because I'm building a business, I burn the candle at both ends. I shouldn't. I go to bed at like 11 and I wake up at 4 or 5. And I wake up very early. I sleep very minimal time. I do not take naps. And but I meditate every single morning when I wake up. I have a same routine every day. I get up. I try to get in movement. I haven't been as good as it at it lately. I should totally do that because it's everything feels better when you move right when you wake up. And then I sit in meditation for like 30 or 45 minutes. And I actively go through everything. I pray, talk to God for a long time. I seek his face. I think that's really important, which means just like seeking relationship where he's like hanging out. And that is what takes up most of the time, is I'll get like lost in that for like a long time. And I have to like draw myself back, which I love because it helps me sort through so many things that are difficult to understand. And I journal also. I do go through a whole meditative process through the chakra system, and it mirrors a little bit of hermetical alchemy in a little bit of ways. A lot of Carl Jung, a lot of that kind of psychoanalytic research happens in the morning. And following those same similar processes, I try to work through those processes because they seem to be like ancient and work, and they do, and everything I feel sane, and it gives me the opportunity to organize different things during the day. Like yesterday, I created some coursework and then I left and I went to the pool and I sat at the pool and then I came back and I worked more. Just taking the time to understand when there's a wall and you have to breathe, which leads me to my next question. What do you tell yourself on the hard days when you're struggling?
I've been very lucky. So I haven't had a day that I actually wanted to drink or do drugs so far. I think that's going to become more of a challenge as I build a life for myself, and that becomes a more normal part, as it is, in most places. Right now, this is a sober living house. There's no drugs or alcohol allowed, and so that's helpful. But I mean, every day I go to the store. I mean, there's actually two liquor stores literally across the street from this building. It's kind of funny, but a lot of days, I think for me, it helps. I think about what's valuable to me. A lot of the things that I do have no, like my job. It has no value. It gets me what I want right now. But you have to think beyond that. You don't want to get. That was one of my fears. I was like, I don't want to drift into a job that's comfortable and pays me enough to not want to look for something else. That's terrifying. That's like a slow death, like you described, just on the inside. Uh, but for me, it's like, hey, to remind myself why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. I could have quit, walked out any time, and I didn't. Hey, for one, that's just rude and disrespectful. But at the time, for example, I used my job. I had just finished school and wasn't sure what I was going to do. Now that I'm in school again, I can do my school anywhere. It's on the internet. That's one of the cool things about it. And I have to confront, as much as my job trains me, what are you going to do? You can't just do nothing. Obviously, that's not going to get you any closer to your goals than staying at the job. But for me, it helps me to remember. I think about why I'm doing what I'm doing. That helps me a lot.
Back to that
The
why.
reason why.
Yeah, it's super important having a reason that's bigger than yourself, right? So what role has your family played in your recovery?
I was very good at burning my bridges. My sister helped me a lot. My mother and my sister have helped me out more than I could ever have expected them to. They have financed my luxurious stay here. They paid for my way for 3 years almost. And so I was doing cash jobs and I paid when I could. I did whatever I could. But I live in a small town just north of Galveston. Like it's one of the last towns before you go over the bridge. And there's not much here. Like you have to leave here to find a job. There's nothing here. There's mosquitoes, marshland, and then of course there's the refineries behind us. But other than that, there's nothing here. So when I started school, my sister bought me a car. My mother and sister sent me enough things to fill this room. I've been here, which I told them not to do. I was like, I don't want to have a bunch of useless things that I needed at one point. Now I have to move them. But they spoiled me, gave me most or all of the things that I wanted. But as far as the work, I did all the they don't have the same issues. I have a grandfather that's been in recovery for like 45 years now. But for the most part, everybody's journey is different. Um, I don't know how much other people gained from going to the meetings. When I first got here, there's meetings here. I was the youngest person here when I got here. I was 31, I think. And the media, it was good because all the people were older and had a lot of experience. Now everybody's young. It's like, I'm like, yeah, they don't really have any, as far as I know, they don't share dreams, aspirations. They don't want to be as open as they could be. I'm like, yeah, I understand, but that's not really helpful. And so I kind of drifted away from the meetings, but I stayed on a somewhat spiritual path. I think it's hard to explain without sounding too hippie, but you feel connected to things greater than yourself. You feel connected more to the universe, the past, the present, the future,
The
to all
Rough
things.
Done podcast is a safe space to be a hippie. I just want you to know that. All woo things we talk about. I don't know if you've listened to this podcast, but we talk about the eight stages of consciousness. We talk about alchemy through sobriety. We've talked about like all kinds of stuff. So, and I've definitely talked about and discussed how everybody is connected. It's called the jeweled net of Indra, and everybody's connected, and everybody is a jewel on the net, and we all are reflecting each other back to each other. It's pretty cool. Go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
So I don't really know how much other people have gained from that sort of interaction with others for their own journey, But for me, I learned more. I think it made me feel more connected to the world to sort of do it on my own. Because it's like, even though I'm doing this here by myself, other people are doing the same thing.
Well, and it goes back to that empowerment, being empowered to heal yourself. It gives you autonomy. It gives you sovereignty over your spirit. And I think I feel like as humans, we feel better when we feel like we're empowered to make changes and like we can grow.
I think it's also a philosophical principle, right? Like that you can lead someone to their revelation, but you can't just give it to them. Otherwise, it doesn't have the same impact.
Right? That's why Jesus said, "You seek and you will find." It seems like such a simple sentence, and it's really just really a loaded sentence because he's not saying, "Seek and you will find." If you go looking for your keys, you're going to find them. No. He means if you go looking for me, you will find me. If you go looking for healing, you will find healing. If you go looking for destruction, you will find destruction. Like, so choose what you're going to go looking for with wisdom. So it is not only like a way to say, choose me, right? Because that's like the point of the New Testament, but it is a way to say, choose wisdom. And I think that that's a powerful thing. I think that wisdom is probably an active thing that exists in us. And but it's only if we want it, if it's only if we seek it. And there you go again, right? Seek wisdom and you will find it. So I think that that is something that we all need to understand, is that looking for what we really want can get us what we really want. We just have to believe that we can get there. And that's hope. And that hope creates that spark of finding the how that we talked about in the beginning, right? I think that's really cool. So, what does your support system look like right now?
There really is one. It's kind of just me. I think I'm. This is difficult to explain. I'm very unconcerned about a support system. I think that's kind of the ultimate test of everything, is how well you can do when. I think that's one of the things about life that I think is exciting about it, is it's a gamble. You don't know. I mean, you could walk outside and get hit by a car. It doesn't matter if somebody would take you in at that moment. I think that's one of the things that really. So for me, like, I'm about to leave here. I have no plan. I'm leaving in 4 weeks on the 21st. I have no plan. But I'm not afraid. My family's terrified because but I'm like, yeah, I understand, but this is nothing new to me.
You have a plan. I mean, you have the time and ability to make a plan. You should make a plan because repeating the same insane behavior is going to get you the same insane result. I've done this before, blah blah blah. But if you fail to plan, or if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So you want to have a support system. So I'm going to tell you now, you have me as your support system. We're friends on Instagram, and we know each other. So there's that. You have Ashley. Um, you have whoever, like anybody in the sobriety community, you probably have a lot more support than you even think that you do. You probably have a lot more people cheering you on and supporting you than you think. And you do need it because we are part of that jeweled net of Indra, and we are all one and we need each other. Period. Like that's it. And that's like what society has taken us away from, the idea that we need each other on purpose. And so if they're doing nefarious shit like that, and that's a nefarious thing, then we should be rebellious and we should lean on each other. And we should seek out that support. So you have my support. And if you need help making a plan or even organizing your thoughts to make a plan, reach out to me. I do not mind helping you at all. because I'm really good at making plans. That's kind of my thing. So there's that. And in 4 weeks, what would you like to see yourself doing? Where would you like to see yourself living?
Well, that's an interesting thing. So I recently learned you can basically just rent a room anywhere. So like if I found a job, I could just move into some room somewhere in another city, which is essentially what I did here. And I was like, yeah, all right, I wouldn't mind doing that. I just don't know. There's no certainty. Um, I guess sometime off camera, I can go into the long list of reasons that I'm ready to leave. But it's been an interesting journey. You mentioned, seeking wisdom.
So what are you working towards? What does life look like a year from now in your mind?
Hopefully, one of the exciting things about opening up my free time is being able to finish school faster. I like to have free time to explore new things. Like I like to read a lot of books. I actually have Carl Jung's Red Book that I haven't read yet. It's been in my library for a while.
It will absolutely heal you from addiction. So read it. The
But
strategies in there are they're effective. The shit works. That's where NAA and AA came from. Like the shit works.
yeah, I was listening to Jordan Peterson, I think, and if there are occasions when you hear somebody talking, you're like, I'll never be as smart as this person. This is insane. But I was like, I'll read those books and see if I arrive at that same conclusion. I'm sorry, could you ask? You said, what does the future look like?
Yeah, what does the future look like? What, like a year from now in your mind, what do you see?
That's interesting. So I used to think that having a lot of money would mean I was successful. And I've come to realize that success means something different to everybody. And so if I could just find something that I don't hate doing, that pays my bills and doesn't consume my life so that I don't have time to enjoy it, I'll be happy. That is my definition of success.
You just have to find what you love. What would you want someone to hear who is right where you were before you got help?
That it is possible and that there is hope. It's very, people always say it's always darkest before the dawn. And sometimes, there are days when it just seems impossible, when you just feel miserable and completely hopeless. And I felt like that many nights, drinking alone, just miserable as can be. And I never thought that there was hope for a better one. Granted, I took it and kind of went down to come back up, I guess, but it is possible. It's not hopeless.
I love that. So, is there anything that you wish people understood about addiction and recovery that they usually get wrong?
I don't think people understand the sort of mental trap that addiction is. Like, people seem to be under the impression that you can just stop. There's so much unpacking involved in stopping that it really isn't as simple as people believe it to be, especially people who don't have any kind of addiction. It's like it's unimaginable to them that it could be as difficult as it actually is.
Amazing. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rough Diamond podcast. It was truly a joy to talk to you. You made me cry. I've never cried on a podcast before. You didn't make me cry, but like it's just emotional. Like it just feels good to see that there's other people that have experienced something similar as me, which moved me to tears in that moment because it was something that was like hard to admit, right? But then you face it and it's like, no, I really do have all of this love in my heart for people. And I really do want to see everybody really succeed now. And having that contrast between now and before when that wasn't the case is a big deal. And seeing that you are on a path of recovery and knowing you now, and you're my friend's brother, and I get to support your journey and cheer you on and see you be successful because I believe that you will be successful 100%. And I send empowering vibes to you so that you freaking fully believe it in your bones because It's so important that you do so that you can be successful and continue after you leave that place in 4 weeks. And I encourage you to enjoy freedom and go wherever you want. And don't think that you're shackled to any place because of old hangups or shame or trauma. Just go and see the value in that freedom. Thank you so much for coming. Do you have any final thoughts?
Oh, yeah, actually, it kind of amazes me how many of us have so much love for others and somehow find disdain for ourselves.
True. Well, you got to stop that. That's the thing. That's the trick, right? You got to learn to love yourself because you are everyone else too. All right, Chris. Well, thank you so much. You have an awesome day. Fucking crush it in 4 weeks, bro. That's your plan.
Yes, I will do my best. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. Bye.